All righty, folks. Maura, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right.
Folks, we are ready to get started. It is 6 o'clock, and I am very excited to have Maura Valenti here with us from New Hampshire's Higher Education Assistance Foundation, and she is going to talk with you folks about all things financial aid, different ways that you can help your student access the most resources that would be available to them.
Right. So you ready for me to start, Heidi?
I think so, yeah.
All right. Just stop me along the way if at all necessary.
I will do that.
All right, folks, let me start by sharing my screen here. I do have a PowerPoint for you this evening. All right. So as Heidi told you, I work for New Hampshire Higher Ed. We have been around for, I think, 50 something years at this point. And the entire reason that we exist is to help anybody in the state of New Hampshire who's looking into higher education. So whether that's help with the college application process or financial aid, all of our services are free of charge, and we are always happy to help you. One of the things that we have recently put in place is you now have the ability to go online and make an appointment with us. So what you are looking at on the screen right now is the link where you would go in order to schedule, whether it's a FAFSA filing appointment, whether you just had a few questions, or maybe your student is still deciding which colleges to apply to or trying to put together that list. We are happy to help with any of it. So calendly.com/NHHEAF, and that's _CCP, if you can see that on there. And again, happy to chat with you about exploring your options after high school, having a conversation about financial aid, or actually helping you file the FAFSA. So all of our appointments are virtual right now, but the FAFSA actually really lends itself to a virtual appointment. We would share our screen, you'd see what we were typing. And again, happy to help you through any of this process. So starting right from the beginning and defining financial aid, I know it sounds almost a bit too obvious to say financial aid is whatever helps a student to go to school. When we as parents talk to each other about financial aid, I usually hear things like, we're not going to qualify for anything, we didn't get anything. So when we're talking to each other about financial aid, usually we're just talking about that free money, because obviously that's what we're looking for, is that free money wherever we can get it from. But financial aid is made up of more than just the free money. It is also loans that the government gives to students or work-study jobs that might be available for the student at the campus. So when you're looking at a financial aid offer, or when you're on the website for a college and you're seeing things like 97% of our students receive financial aid, again, you'll be wondering, is this free money? Is it loans? You know, what is making up this financial aid package? So the pieces that will be making up financial aid are, first, let's talk about that good stuff that we're looking for, that free money. So scholarship money is merit-based. So that means that your student has done something outstanding. They really want your student to be a student at their college. So they are offering merit money. So whether that's for grades or SAT scores or to play a sport, whatever it is, the student has done something to earn merit money. So usually that has absolutely nothing to do with the FAFSA or any of the financial aid. So when a student gets their acceptance letter from a college, a lot of times they might find out right in the acceptance letter whether or not they got any scholarship money. So an acceptance letter may say, congratulations, you're in, and it may then say, and you qualify for $10,000 a year as long as you maintain X GPA. You know, you qualify for our presidential scholarship or our dean's scholarship. So again, that is free money that has absolutely nothing to do with family finances. The free money that is attached to family financial information is the grant money. So grant money is also free money, and you will not find out whether or not your student qualifies for grants until after you file the FAFSA. Once they've gotten into the school, the college, then you would get the financial aid package from the college. You would find out, Again, if there's scholarship money, they'll tell you about that. If there is any grant money, you would find out then. The self-help aid is the kind of the stuff that technically is financial aid, but that we don't talk about as often as being part of financial aid. So financial aid offer, if there's any grants or scholarships, free money being offered to the student, it would be in the financial aid offer. But every student qualifies for a loan from the federal government. So back in our day, we called them Stafford loans. Now they're called direct federal loans. It is $5,500 for a student who's going to be a freshman in college next year. For a student's sophomore year of college, the government will loan them $6,500. Junior and senior year of college, it's $7,500 each. So these are the loans that are just in the student's name. Nobody's co-signing. They're not pulling a credit report on students, on parents. Does not matter how much money anybody makes. Every student who files the FAFSA is eligible for a loan from the government for $5,500. So again, when we say things like, oh, we're not going to get anything, or why bother filing the FAFSA, that is also how you get access to loans. So that's why it's important that even if you think you don't qualify for grant money, you still have the FAFSA on file so that you have access to the lower interest student loans. Work study jobs are also considered to be part of financial aid because they are looking at a family's financial need before they award work study jobs. And to say somebody is awarded a work study job is a little bit deceiving. It is a little bit frustrating the way they put them on the award packages sometimes. So when you see work study, you'll see an amount of money next to it. Could be $1,000, could be $3,000. At a different college, your student might not qualify for any work study. But when you are seeing an amount of money, that means that your student can go to the college, get a job, but it's going to be just like any other job. They're going to make their $9, $10 an hour, and they're going to get paid every other week, just like they would anywhere else. So that $1,000 that they're being awarded in work study is an opportunity to earn up to $1,000. But again, they will get paid for the hours they work and as they work them. So again, every other week in a paycheck. So it's just really important when you're looking at a financial aid award offer, not to just go to the bottom line and assume that that's an amount of money that's coming off the bill. Financial aid will be made up of free money, grants, scholarships, but also loans and work study possibly are going to be in the financial aid offers as well. Every college has what is called a net price calculator on their website. I'm actually a big fan of these. They didn't come out until 2011, but the government has since mandated them on every college website. I think it's a really great way to get an idea, basically, of who gives out money, but also how they give out their money. So when you're filling out a net price calculator, you're going to get a sense of whether you would qualify for need-based aid at that school, whether your student might qualify for some merit money at that school. You put in all your information, click submit, and it's going to tell you a financial aid package from this school would probably look like this. So it's a really great way to say, okay, the sticker price is $70,000. According to this net price calculator, it might be more like $30,000. If that's the case, we can definitely talk about this as an option. When my own children were seniors in high school, we did the net price calculators for all of the schools they were interested in. They got their acceptances, they got their financial aid letters. And when I compared those to the numbers I had gotten in the net price calculators, every single one of them was within about $2,000 of what the net price calculator had told me we'd probably be looking at as a family. So to me, that was a great place to start with the kids to say, okay, if you do qualify for this scholarship, we can talk about this school. And if not, you know, there's B, C, D, that type of thing. But net price calculators are going to give you an idea basically of how much it might cost for you to send your student to that school. But also you're going to get a sense of who gives out merit money and who gives out need-based money. So now we're going to talk about applying for financial aid. So there is one website you absolutely will want to become acquainted with, and that is studentaid.gov. The government has moved everything financial aid, student loan related to this one website. And this is in the very recent past. So I believe you can still go to FAFSA.gov and it'll get you to the right place. But no matter what you do, you want to make sure you're on the government website. So whatever website you're on, please make sure it ends in .gov. If you are on a FAFSA website that ends in .com, chances are they're going to ask you for $79.99 to file the free application for federal student aid. So it's one of the only things that's free in this process. So you definitely want to take advantage of that. And again, we are happy to file the FAFSA with you. You're more than welcome to make an appointment. But again, you just want to start by making sure that you're on the correct website. The FAFSA is available now. So if you are the parent of a senior, you can be filing the FAFSA now. Every college has their own deadline. So you just want to make sure that you're ahead of the deadlines. You're filing one FAFSA and it's going to all of the schools that the student is applying to. The good news is the college does not care which arrives first, the FAFSA or the application to the college. So you do not have to wait for your student to send in their college applications in order to do the FAFSA. If you have an idea of where they're planning to apply, you can absolutely right now go on the FAFSA, fill in your financial information, you'll fill in what schools you want it sent to, and click submit. If your student changes their mind about a school, if they want to add a school to their list, very easy to go back and do that later. Okay, so the FAFSA is available now, and every college is going to have their own deadline, so you just want to make sure that you're paying attention to those deadlines. I will talk about the FAFSA in detail tonight, but again, this is just kind of a general, everybody will be filing the FAFSA. There is another form that some of you will be dealing with, and that is called the CSS profile. So some of the more selective schools, some of those colleges that have large endowments, a lot of money to give out, they still want the FAFSA, but these particular schools want more information from you than just what's on the FAFSA before they decide where their money's going. Okay, so every college will want the FAFSA. There are some schools that want the CSS profile as well. So you can go to that website, the cssprofile.org. You'll get an alphabetical list of the colleges that want that. That is also available now. It also became available on October 1st. So you just want to check and see if that is going to be part of your process. In New Hampshire, the only colleges that ask for the CSS are St. Anselm and Dartmouth. But BC, BU, Northeastern, a lot of the private schools, any of the Ivy League schools, they are all going to want the CSS profile as well as the FAFSA. So I am going to talk about both of these tonight, but just wanted to make sure that you're aware of the basics first. These are essentially the two application forms. So talking about the FAFSA first, the student will create a username and password, so an FSA ID, Federal Student Aid ID. They will use that to log into the FAFSA. One parent will also get an FSA ID, so a username and password, but that is only used at the end to sign off on the FAFSA. So this is where there tends to be some confusion because, and again, I know as a parent, we really expect there to be that parent portal and just let us into the FAFSA. We've got a username and password, but it's just really important to remember that in order to access the FAFSA, you need to log in as the student. So again, there's this new studentaid.gov website. The student will create an account, which is creating an FSA ID. A parent will also create an account, which is an FSA ID, but then log into the FAFSA on there with the student's login. Okay, that's what's going to get you into the FAFSA. When you're filling out your demographic information on the FAFSA, it will ask you if you want to use the data retrieval tool. So the IRS data retrieval tool, if you click yes, will bring you directly to the IRS website, and it will download your tax information into the FAFSA. So for one, that saves you a little bit of typing, and you know that the numbers are accurate because it transferred over automatically. The other point is that if the college wants to verify your tax information, they actually will not have to go any further than looking at your FAFSA because they've gotten the tax information directly from the IRS already. If you've had a marital status change, or if there's been identity theft or anything like that, there certainly are reasons some people can't use the data retrieval tool. Totally fine. You just want to have your 1040 in front of you, and you'll just be plugging in those numbers yourself. And then later, if the college asks you to verify the information, you would get a tax transcript from the IRS, and that is how they would verify it. So it could be one extra step, but really it's pretty easy to just put those numbers into the FAFSA yourself from your 1040 form. And again, something we do with families all the time, so happy to help with that. Frequently asked questions. Whose FAFSA is it? Again, the FAFSA itself belongs to the student. So think of it in terms of it is the student applying to the college. So it is also the student applying for financial aid at the college. I know as parents, we're putting the information in, it's all of our financial information, so we think of it as ours. But if you were to call the college, or if you were to call the helpline for the FAFSA, they are only going to speak to the student because, again, it belongs to the student. It's tied to their social security number. They want to protect their privacy. So now's the time to kind of get used to the fact that once your student is in college, the college is only going to communicate with your student. So now's the time to kind of make sure everybody's on the same page going forward. So if you as a parent sat down, did the whole FAFSA, your student wasn't even home, and I live in the real world, I get that that's what happens sometimes. Just make sure they have the username and password, that they know how to get into it. Ideally, everybody's sitting at the kitchen table together. The student does their username and password, the parent does theirs, and you fill out the FAFSA form together. Again, I realize that doesn't always happen, but just make sure, again, that everybody's on the same page. The deadline to complete the FAFSA. Every college has their own. So the FAFSA is open now. You can send it to up to 10 colleges at once by clicking submit. So you can go ahead and get that done as soon as you know where your student plans to apply. So you don't have to wait until you're closer to the deadline. You will be using 2020 tax information. So that's information that you already have. So again, anytime you're ready, you can go on and fill the FAFSA. Which year's tax return? So again, 2020. If that is not indicative of what your financial status is now, we will talk about that in a couple minutes, but in order to fill out the FAFSA, in order to get that done and submitted, you will be putting in 2020 numbers. If a family has more than one child in college at the same time, so a couple of different things. One, again, the FAFSA belongs to the student. So if you are sending 2 students off to college, they each will have an FSA ID. They each will have their own FAFSA. And then you as a parent will use your parent FSA ID to sign off on both FAFSAs. The easiest way to do that, saves you a little bit of typing. Sit down, fill out one FAFSA, click submit. In the middle of the page, it will say, do you want to transfer parent demographic information into a sibling's FAFSA? If you click yes, it will bring you into the sibling's FAFSA, and at least some of that information will be pre-populated. On the back side of things, when they are figuring out the FAFSA information, it will have asked you how many students you're going to have in college next year. So suppose when I sent my oldest off to college, Katie, our EFC was $20,000. Well, this year, Katie and Ryan are both in college. I said I have 2 in college. So now they each have an EFC of $10,000. Because an EFC, that expected family contribution, that's an amount of money. Once you click submit on the FAFSA, it gives you this EFC number, this expected family contribution. It's the amount of money that In theory, they're saying your family can afford to pay for a year of college. So again, if I was sending my daughter Katie off to school, she got an EFC of $20,000. If she was applying to a school that costs $60,000, what she would be eligible for in need-based aid at that school would be $40,000. It does not mean the school is going to meet us there. It's not a guarantee of anything, but the difference between the cost of the school and the student's EFC is how much you're eligible for in need-based financial aid. So again, this year, sending Katie and Ryan off, if they each had an EFC of 10,000, it does make them eligible for a little bit more financial aid. So again, not a guarantee, but it does raise their eligibility for financial aid. Who qualifies as an independent student? So these are questions that we get all the time, that my student's going to be 18 before they graduate. So do we really have to put our information on the FAFSA as parents? Or my student's been out of high school for a year, does pay their own bills, lives on their own. Why are they asking for my information on the FAFSA? So if a student is considered independent on the FAFSA, it means they are not going to ask any information about the parent's finances. Everything will be based solely on the student's finances. But for the most part, FAFSA is considering your students to be dependent. So a student is considered dependent on the FAFSA unless they are over the age of 24 or married or full-time military or already have a bachelor's degree. So the exceptions to that would be a student who was in a legal guardianship or will be when they turn 18, a student who has been in foster care at some point after the age of 13, and then anybody who falls under kind of the umbrella of homeless in terms of, if you're not sure if you'll qualify as an independent student, feel free to give us a call. But somebody living in a shelter or even somebody couch surfing among friends because they don't feel safe at home, situations like that, that student probably could get independent status, and we're happy to help with that if you happen to know somebody in that situation. Which then brings us to which parents go on the FAFSA if the student has more than one household. So if there is one household, FAFSA wants information from the parents in that household. So whether they are currently married, not married, if the biological parents live together, both parents will go on the FAFSA. If the parents were never married and have separate addresses, or they are legally divorced, or they are separated, if there are separate addresses, the FAFSA only wants information from one household. The way to determine which household is wherever the student was, physically was, the majority of the time over the past year. Okay, so even though you might have 50-50 custody, joint decision-making, all of that in a parenting plan, wherever the student physically was most of the time this past year, even if that's just 51% of the time, that's the household that's filing the FAFSA. So if that's mom, it's mom's financial information. If mom is legally married, it's mom and spouse's information that go on the FAFSA. So I'll put up this chart. These are certainly some of the questions that we get. So again, the parents, whether or not they are legally married, if they are both your biological parents and live under the same roof, both parents go on there. If there are separate addresses, it's only one household that goes on there. Heidi, this would probably be a good time if you had any questions or if we were at a point that you needed clarification on anything.
No, I think we are all set with the questions. We had one about EFC, but I was able to answer that one. So I think we're good to go.
Beautiful. All right, I will keep going then. So I did tell you a moment ago that if your 2020 tax information does not really tell the financial picture of your household now, absolutely, you do want to tell the colleges that. There just isn't a way to do it on the FAFSA. So you file the FAFSA, you give them the numbers they're asking for, you click submit, but then every college will have a special circumstances form or some kind of way for you to give them that information. So it's just a matter of calling the financial aid office and saying there are circumstances I'd like to make you aware of about our finances, and they will tell you what their procedure is. But for the most part, they're going to say, here's our special circumstances form, fill this out, and we will take both under consideration. Okay, so again, if you have something you want to let them know, medical bills, things like that, absolutely the colleges do want to hear from you. When you're filing the FAFSA, mostly they're looking at your income. It really is an income-driven form. So when they're coming up with that amount of money that you can afford as a family, that EFC, mostly they're looking at adjusted gross income. So anything that hits your adjusted gross income is going to count as income. So that's wages, rental income, interest and ordinary dividends. If you've cashed in an IRA, if you've rolled one over, that's different, and that will be taken out of the equation. But if you've cashed one in, that's going to be on there. Child support received for all children in the household. So it will ask if anyone in your household received child support and how much in the year 2020. That's the way the question is going to be phrased. If there's somebody in the home on Social Security, that does not go anywhere on the FAFSA. So SSI, SSDI, any untaxed Social Security benefits do not need to be claimed as income anywhere on the FAFSA. So again, in the equation that they use for the FAFSA, income is really the most important piece. They are looking at assets, but they don't factor in nearly as much as your income. And when they're looking at assets, they are not including the home that you live in or any dedicated retirement accounts. So that is off the table. They're looking at assets that you have above those things. So money that you have in the bank, investments that you have that aren't tied to retirement. If you own a second property, 529s, UTMAs, UGMAs, things like that are considered assets. As you're filing the FAFSA, always kind of double check that you know what section you're in, because there's going to be questions for parents and questions for the student. And you want to make sure that you're putting things in the right place, because they assess 20% of the student's assets, but only 5% of the parents. So in that case, it's important to know that the 529 is a parent asset and things like that. So again, you will get this information as you're reading through the FAFSA, but you just want to make sure that you're putting the assets in the right section, whether they belong to the parent or the student.
Or I know in years past, we've had questions about what is the UTMA and what is the UGMA account.
Absolutely. So UTMA, Uniform Trust to a Minor account. A UGMA is a Uniform Gift to a Minor account. Those are both investments that go under the student on the FAFSA. And the way I see these come up most often, honestly, is somebody says, I think my mother-in-law started a college account for the kid when she was born. I don't remember what it was. And then they go back and look, and it's usually an UTMA or an UGMA. So if there's some kind of vague college savings account there somewhere, but you're not entirely sure what kind it is or whose name's on it, now's the time to kind of dig that out. But yes, Uniform Trust to a Minor account or Uniform Gift to a Minor account. So that was all FAFSA. And again, everybody will file the FAFSA. So whether you're looking at four-year colleges, community colleges, even some of the trade schools, usually any program that is more than 16 credits long, they will ask for the FAFSA. The CSS profile, on the other hand, again, is only required by, it's about 200 schools. And so again, in New Hampshire, it is St. Anselm and Dartmouth, BC, BU, Northeastern, the Ivy League schools. Some of those schools are looking for it as well. CSS Profile is a College Board product. College Board is the SAT company. So what's really important to realize here is please do not think that you're getting ahead of the game and set up a CSS Profile account. Your student already has one because your student has a College Board login because that's what they used for the SATs. So that is the login that is being used to file the CSS profile. So you and your student will go in through their College Board login. You'll get to the CSS profile. You will tell them what colleges you want it sent to. They will give you the information that you should have in front of you when you go to fill it out. The CSS profile, it's going to take longer than the FAFSA. It's tedious, it's more involved, you're gathering more paperwork. Again, these are the schools that have got some money to give out. It's absolutely worth your while. You just want to be aware of it sooner rather than later because it is going to take a little bit. But you can do pieces of it, click save, go back to it later. Again, they will tell you the list of things you should have in front of you in order to fill it out. It's not difficult. They just ask for an awful lot of information. So it just takes a while to get through. So frequently asked questions about the CSS profile. The deadline to complete the CSS profile, just like the FAFSA, every college has their own deadlines for admission and for financial aid. So you just want to check with the schools that your student is applying to. Which year's tax return are families using on the CSS profile? So again, for FAFSA, very cut and dry 2020 taxes. For the CSS profile, they are also going to ask you questions about 2019, and they are also going to ask you what 2021 currently looks like for you financially. Which parents are included on the CSS profile form. So again, if there's more than one household involved, I would suggest whoever is the parent that filed the FAFSA, you sit down with your student to file the CSS profile as well. There are some colleges that want what they refer to as the non-custodial form. So that would be the other household. In that case, they ask you for contact information for the other parent or the other household. They get in touch with them. They do create a separate login. And so your information is not in the same form. You're not seeing each other's financial information. It's meeting up on the back end at the college. Okay, but again, if the student has more than one household, fill out the CSS profile with the FAFSA parent. And then there are some colleges that will want to hear from the other parent as well. There is also a waiver form. Unfortunately, they know that this isn't an easy task for a lot of families, or there might be situations where they're not in touch with the other parent, or it is not a good idea for them to be in touch with the other parent. Whatever it is, there is a waiver form, and the colleges are going to try to work with you on that. So just be aware of that as well. Whoops. Which colleges can see the answers to the supplemental questions? So if it says only Boston College is asking what kind of car you drive, the other colleges aren't asking that, then you'll put what kind of car you drive into the form, but only Boston College would get that answer. Okay, so they're not giving other colleges information that they did not ask for, but you will be filling out one CSS profile. When you put in the names of the colleges, it then gathers all of the questions for you so that you're just filling out one form. Where should a family report special circumstances? On the CSS profile, first, they may already be apparent from the information you've given them simply because they ask for so much information. So not only are they going to ask for multiple tax years, but they're also going to ask about debts, about medical bills, things like that. So they might have a clearer picture already. If there's still something else that you do want to communicate, there is a narrative box on the CSS profile. So unlike the FAFSA, where there's no room for anything but the numbers, the CSS profile does give you a narrative box at the end. Heidi, I will stop there again for a second. If there are any other questions about the FAFSA or the CSS.
We actually do have a question about a Coverdell education account.
In terms of whose asset it is?
Just a question of what is that?
I am not entirely sure, to be very, very honest with you. It's something that is just a few years old, just like there are IRAs for education now and things like that. So if you have one, check with whoever it's through to find out if it is an asset on the FAFSA. I don't believe they are, but I don't want to tell you that for sure.
Alrighty, thanks. New one, I hadn't heard of that. I actually was just Googling it.
Oh. Well, see, that makes me feel better. Like I've heard of it, but I don't want to tell you exactly what it is because. Okay, so we talked about applying for financial aid, the FAFSA, the CSS profile. So now the college has all of the information. In terms of timing, first you'll hear back from the college that the student has been accepted. And then the information goes to the financial aid office. So financial aid offices aren't putting together offers until students are accepted. So you're going to get a letter saying, hey, congratulations, you're in. And then usually it's 2 or 3 weeks later when you get the actual financial aid offer. When you receive the financial aid offer, really important to know who you is. When I say you receive it, it is the student. So if you're anything like me, you still expect things to come in the mail and you're going to sit at home waiting for this big manila envelope to come in the mail addressed to you, because obviously you're going to be the one taking care of this. And in the meantime, your student is sitting in class or in the cafeteria and received an email or a text from the college that says, hey, log into our portal, all your financial aid information's there. So even though there are some colleges that may still mail a physical letter home, even if they do, it's going to be addressed to the student. But for the most part, colleges now are just getting in touch with students to say, check your portal. There's information in your portal. So after a student is accepted to the college and they have information on how to set up their portal on the college website, you want to make sure that they're doing that so that everybody's on the same page. We get a lot of panicked phone calls in March and April from moms saying, we have not seen anything about financial aid. And students we know are getting inundated with texts and emails from the colleges. And so they might miss important information simply because they're getting so much information. So again, just important for everybody to kind of be on the lookout a few weeks after the acceptance letter arrives. So I talked a little bit about the federal direct loans at the beginning, loans that are part of financial aid. So those are going to appear on the award letter. Every student, again, who fills out the FAFSA can qualify for $5,500 in loans from the government for freshman year, $6,500 sophomore year, $7,500 junior, $7,500 senior. Now you may see those split out into 2 loans in the financial aid offer. So if you're looking at that $5,500, you may actually be looking at a $3,500 subsidized loan and a $2,000 unsubsidized loan. If that is the case, any money that's being subsidized, that means the government is paying the interest while the student's in school. So interest is not going to accrue while the student's in school. On an unsubsidized loan, interest is going to be accruing after the disbursement. But either way, the student does not have to make any payments until they're out of college. Okay, but that is the difference between a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan when you were looking at those. Work study, again, you may or may not see this as part of a financial aid package. You might see it from some schools and not others. You might see $1,000 here, $4,000 there. Again, that is if the student chooses to get a job on campus, cafeteria, maybe giving tours in the admissions office, the library. There are actually a lot of great jobs on campus, but they would get a paycheck every other week for the amount that they had worked. Financial aid offer. So again, when the college has determined the student's eligibility for financial aid, they take the cost of their school minus the student's EFC, and that is what the student is eligible for in need-based financial aid. So then the financial aid offer is sent to the student. It will tell you about any scholarship money. Again, that would be free money. Grant money, if the family qualifies for anything there, that would be on there as well, free money. The federal direct Stafford loan, that might show up as a $5,500 loan, or it might show up that they're subsidizing $3,500 of it. But either way, you will definitely see $5,500 in loans in that financial aid package. And again, a work study job might be part of that package as well. I keep using the word package out of habit. We've always called it a financial aid package or a financial aid award letter. They are trying to standardize. So hopefully what you are going to see is financial aid offer going forward, that is how it'll be referred to. So managing the cost beyond financial aid. Every college will have a tuition payment plan. So if you know you're going to owe $30,000 for freshman year, it does not have to be that you set up $30,000 on a tuition payment plan over the next 10 months. It could be that you think you can pay $6,000 over the course of the year, and then you go elsewhere and take out a loan for $24,000. Sometimes it does make sense to sit down, figure out if there's some that you can put towards a tuition payment plan, and then take out a loan for the rest. Because unfortunately, student loans being unsecured loans, the interest rates tend to be a little higher than what we see for our mortgages or our cars and things like that. So I've mentioned a few times that what the government will loan the student is $5,500. That is automatic, regardless of income, credit, anything else. But should the student need more than that in a loan, it's going to involve someone else. So you have a couple of options at that point. A parent can take out a loan from the federal government. That's called a PLUS loan, a parent loan for undergraduate student. That is in the parent's name. It does stay in the parent's name for the life of the loan. You would fill out the application on that same website where you did the FAFSA, and they do pull your credit. And as long as you get approved, you're approved for the amount that you need. So if you need $30,000, they're not going to say, congratulations, you're approved for $5,000. Getting approved means that you can get what you need to pay the school. The other option is going to be a private student loan. So whether you're looking at some of the nonprofit companies, I know Members First Credit Union does them. Advest in You is our sister company. We have a private student loan. And then there's the for-profit companies that you've heard of, Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, Citibank. The great thing about looking at private loans is that you can compare and contrast. So it's not going to be until May or June that you're doing this, but you can apply for several of the loans, see who gives you the best deal, and go with that company. It's only going to count as one credit pull in the end, because they know in the end, you're not taking out 12 student loans, you're taking out one student loan. So it will only ding your credit once in the long term. The difference with a private student loan, it is your student applying for it, but they do need to have a cosigner with an income and with decent credit. So again, you can apply to several different companies and compare who has fixed rates versus variable. Do some of them offer a cosigner release? They're all a little bit different, but you do have that option to kind of shop around in May or June. So Heidi, is there anything else? I'm going to talk a little bit about scholarships before wrapping up and going to any other questions, but.
No other questions.
All right, so be thinking, folks, because we're almost there, final stretch here. So I would say really right now, the focus is on the students applying to the colleges and the parents helping get that financial aid, the FAFSA done, the CSS profile if necessary. The absolute best way to make college affordable is to apply to the right places, have a safety school in place, and to be meeting deadlines. So before searching for scholarships, I would say you want to make sure that those are your priorities. There absolutely are some great national websites, but again, you're one person on a national website, so you look at those odds, and again, you want to kind of keep that in mind. College Board, FastWeb, anything that you see on here, these are great sites, but again, the applicant pool is fairly large. There is an awful lot of money locally. The difference being that the timing for local scholarships is usually a little bit different and frankly, a little bit inconvenient. Everybody's kind of gung-ho this time of year, get those applications done, look at those colleges. By February and March, no student wants to sit down and do applications and write another essay and things like that. But for local scholarships, many of them are not available until February or March. So even just having a little family meeting talking about how there's still going to be work to do in February and March for some of those local scholarships. I'll talk a little bit about New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Then I'm certainly going to ask Heidi to talk about your community and the process at your high school. And really what I hope for parents when I give this advice is that it goes better in your household than it did in mine. So good luck with that. But again, having that conversation now that there's going to be more work to do, hopefully will work well in your household rather than me just saying to my kids in February, guess what? Sit down, you have to do this now. Locally, one of the big ones, or the big one for the state of New Hampshire, is New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. It does not open until February 1st, and it usually closes somewhere in mid-April. It is for residents of New Hampshire. You do not have to be going to college in New Hampshire, so that's great. Also, there is money there for community college, career schools, trade schools, things like that. So again, there's an awful lot of scholarship money that flows through this one place. You definitely want to make sure that this is on your list for the beginning of February. And Heidi, at whatever point it makes sense, I can stop sharing my screen, but also I want to give you a chance to talk about scholarships or anything else that you wanted to do.
Sure. So our, similar to New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, our local scholarship packet, I think last year we gave out about $55,000 in scholarships to just Sanborn students. So it's worth it to fill out the application. The application process can seem daunting, but it's really not. We try and keep it as simple as possible. And last year, out of the class of 175, I think only 25 students filled out the application process. So it's definitely worth your time to stop up to the counseling office and grab one of those packets when they become available in February. And then fill it out. We'll attach your transcripts and everything for you, and then help you send them off so that you can be eligible for that money. And those scholarships are awarded in May at our senior scholarship night. I can't say enough about the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Michael Trammell works at New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. He used to be an assistant principal here at Sanborn, and he tells us every year how much money goes unawarded because students don't apply. So if you need help with finding that application, or your student needs help with finding that application, send off an email to one of the counselors, because we can definitely point you in the right direction. It's worth the time that it takes to fill that out. Even for this, there's not a lot of scholarships for community colleges or for those career and technical schools. And there's money specifically geared towards those schools and those programs at New Hampshire Charitable. So that's where we send a lot of students to look there. I'm looking in the chat and we do not have any other questions. So if anyone wants to pop one in real quick, we can do that. Otherwise, do you want to give a last plug for how people can reach out to you and make an appointment?
Yeah, absolutely, Heidi. So tomorrow I will make sure, Heidi, that you have the slides and that you have a PDF of our financial aid insider if parents would like access to that.
Sure.
It sounds like you have the video of the recording, right? Because I don't know anything about YouTube
I
Live.
do, yep.
All
Would you
right.
be okay with us putting that College Insider on our website?
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect.
You are more than welcome to do that. And folks, you will have my email address and you will also get that Calendly link again. Please feel free to make an appointment with one of us or even just call with questions. We are always happy to help.
And I will definitely say that the counselors here, they're great at what they do, but they do not feel comfortable working with your personal financial information. They don't want to delve into that. And they're not financial advisors, nor are NHEAF, but you folks have a little bit more expertise in this area. So we always defer to you for any tricky situations or for anyone who just wants some one-on-one time to go through that FAFSA to make sure that you're filling everything out the right way so that you can access as much support for your student to pursue college and anything else that they've got in mind for after high school. I'm looking, we still don't have any more questions, so I'm guessing you did such a great job that we are going to end for the night. So again, if anyone has anything, last minute thoughts or whatever, folks, you know how to reach me, just send me an email. And if I don't know, I'll be reaching out tomorrow. Otherwise, I think we will call it a night. Have a good night, everyone.